When you think about the great American railroads, what comes to mind? Probably iron, steam, and steel, right? But behind that incredible feat of engineering is a human story. It's a story of sacrifice and pure survival that honestly has been mostly forgotten. So today, we're going to dig into the story of the Irish workers, who, with their bare hands, laid the very tracks of modern America. And this right here is the real heart of it. It's this huge contradiction. On one hand, you have this monumental, nation-defining achievement, and on the other, it was all built on the backs of poor, hungry immigrants who were often completely anonymous. Their legacy is literally the steel that binds the country together, but their own stories? Almost completely lost to time. So you have to ask, how did thousands of Irish men and women end up so far from home, doing some of the most dangerous work you can even imagine? Well, the story doesn't start in America. It starts across the ocean, in a homeland that was in the grip of a total catastrophe. The big trigger was the Great Famine. And it's really hard to overstate just how devastating this was. I mean, the potato crop failed, and for millions of people, that was their main source of food. This wasn't just some agricultural problem. It was a full-blown national disaster that led to unbelievable suffering and death. You've got to understand, it was like a perfect storm of misery. It wasn't just the famine. It was also crushing poverty, a political system that gave them zero hope, and people losing the very land their families had farmed for generations. For millions, leaving wasn't really a choice. It was the only shot they had at survival. And on the other side of that terrifying journey was America. It was this beacon promising the one thing Ireland just could not provide: a job. And hey, even a brutally difficult, dangerous job was a glimmer of hope in all that darkness. Okay, so they make it to America. And what happens? A lot of these Irish immigrants were funneled straight into the hardest, most grueling jobs available. And nothing was harder than building the railroads. So let's really get into the raw, physical reality of their daily lives. Seriously, try to picture this. Before all the heavy machinery we have today, how did you actually build hundreds of miles of iron track across a rugged, untamed country? What did that actually look and feel like for the people doing the work? Well, it was absolutely backbreaking. I mean, we're talking swinging a pickaxe for 12 hours a day in blistering heat or freezing cold. They were blasting through solid rock with unstable explosives and hauling these incredibly heavy iron rails by hand. And maybe the most shocking part, there was zero safety equipment. None. Accidents weren't just common, they were an expected part of the job. And for all that risk, all that brutal labor, they earned about $1 a day. Just $1. That's barely enough to survive. And to make it even worse, the contractors would often cheat them out of even those tiny wages. But, the hardship didn't just stop when the workday was over. The price of America's progress was paid not just in their sweat and blood, but in the social and emotional toll it took on these new immigrant communities. This infamous phrase was something you'd see all the time on job postings and in shop windows. It's just a stark reminder that even as they were literally building the nation's backbone, the Irish faced this intense discrimination. They were often seen as inferior and targeted by anti-immigrant, anti-Catholic hate. So you've got this massive disconnect, right, between the promise of America and the reality they actually found. The dream of a fresh start collided, hard, with the truths of prejudice, constant danger, and exploitation. They were essential to the country's growth, but they were treated like outsiders. And it wasn't just the work that could kill you. Life in the makeshift camps was incredibly perilous. We're talking crowded, unsanitary shacks where diseases like cholera could spread like wildfire. Add in bad food, malnutrition, and the ever-present risk of a landslide or an explosion, and you start to see that death was just a constant companion. In this, to me, might be the most tragic part of the whole story. The death toll was so incredibly high that to the companies, individual lives just became a statistic. There were often no records, no names, no headstones, just anonymous bodies buried right there alongside the iron tracks they laid. But here's the thing, their story does not end in tragedy. Despite all the suffering, the legacy of these Irish workers is just profound. Their sacrifice was not for nothing. It actually became the very foundation of the nation we know today. What they did had this incredible ripple effect. By connecting the East and West coasts, they weren't just laying track, they were opening up massive trade routes. That, in turn, fueled the entire Industrial Revolution. Their labor created this vast network that allowed for unbelievable economic growth for generations to come. It's just an amazing story of resilience, really. While that first generation endured so much, they also built these strong, tight-knit communities. And their kids and their grandkids, standing on that foundation they built, went on to become absolute pillars of American society. We're talking police officers, firefighters, politicians, and leaders in every single field. So when it comes right down to it, it reveals a simple but really powerful truth. The engine of American progress has always been fueled by immigrant hands. The Irish railroad workers paid an incredibly heavy price, and their strength, their resilience, it's all woven right into the fabric of the nation. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. The story of the Irish railroad workers, it's just one chapter in a much, much bigger book. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? As you look around at our modern world, what other forgotten stories are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone to tell them?